this evening is a live streaming agreement with Brenda Broadcasting. Your field. I previously provided this to you. What it's going to do, in my personal opinion, is provide no cost to district coverage of some of our major sports, both boys and girls. And it's a nice way to work with our local partners to help promote our programs and promote our kids. In addition to that, Ms. Cinda, if the board has any questions with Brenda, we'll address that. But in addition to that, I'd like to work with High Top Sports to do hockey. They, as you know, we had discussions about them doing all the other sports that Brenda did not want to pursue. And they said no at first. Then we had another conversation, and they are interested in hockey. And so I'd like to work on a similar contract with them. Because I think what we want to do is promote all of our programs, especially hockey, knowing what they did last year going to the state championship. So for your approval tonight is not High Top Sports. It's for something you to give me feedback on. If you're comfortable with me trying to entertain and work with them on a similar agreement. But tonight for your approval is Brenda Broadcasting for a 3-year deal, which the contract and the overall scope of work I provided you previously. Any questions, Ms. Cinda, or committee members?
No.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Thank you.
Moving on, under staffing, Ms. Brode, tonight the board is going to look at hiring a multitude of positions. And I want to give some context. In an executive session, we'll talk about the candidates and their qualifications, but here in this committee meeting, I think what's important for our public to know is a couple things. Number one, in our in-person classes, we are at or exceeding the class size guidelines. For example, we came up with a chart, as you all know, certain, for example, pre-K, first, second, maybe about 20. We're either 20 or 21, so we're close. What we're doing tonight, Ms. Cinda, is we would like to do internal transfer, as well as hire 3 more additional elementary teachers to keep those class sizes at manageable positions and give us a little bit of buffer, and that helps not only for additional enrollment, but also helps with social distancing in the pandemic itself. We think it makes sense. We think it's a step in the right direction, and it's aligned with everything we did do. We did look at alternative options to see if these were absolutely necessary. We feel coming tonight that they are. In the exec session, Rob will lead the conversation about the interviewees and who we're recommending. But at this point, the board is going to take action with doing 1 internal transfer, and then we're going to hire 3 more additional elementary positions. We're also going to tonight hire a learning support position at the junior high. We're going to move 1 of the internal transfers, which then opens up a vacancy at the junior high. We'll take care of that tonight. And then the last thing we'd like to talk to you about in the committee about, Ms. Cinda, is synchronous learning. There's some misinformation about there about we're not offering synchronous. We are offering it, and what this extra position will do will allow us to maybe make sure we can offer synchronous learning for, we're up to about maybe 20 families who want it at the elementary level. But what's also going to be nice is when we start addressing how we're going to do quarantines, if the whole class is not quarantined, these people can help fill in some instruction during those areas. Additionally, while they're not providing instruction, Rob and I are going to adjust and I are going to work with the principals to provide some other duties for them. But the caseloads are somewhat small, but they're growing steadily. For example, when we met a week and a half ago, we were around 40 people enrolled in synchronous. We're now 55. Still a majority at the high school, but this gives us the opportunity to meet the elementary needs, K through 5, address quarantine, and then provide some intervention and other support when possible and needed. Mr. Rowe?
That's 45 people across the district?
Yeah, 50. Yeah, we're about 50 now across the district. Yes, sir.
So, and majority are secondary?
Yes, sir.
Do you think we'll be able to continue to do this?
Yeah, yes, sir. I think as long as the board's willing, at this point, sir, we're going to recommend using ESSER funds to pay for this. So we have it for the next 2 years. What we'll have to do is just visit every year and see where we're at. I think I would like the board to take serious considerations about continuing synchronous learning because we created something that worked, right? I don't think you can teach kids how to do math. Let me restate that. I think it's difficult to teach kids how to do math and reading asynchronously, and this allows us to really fill that need. So those families who are not comfortable coming back regarding the COVID pandemic, we now have some, in live instruction for K-5 students.
If a building has to go to quarantine, then does that allow us then to extend the synchronous learning for that building, perhaps?
Yeah, and what we're going to do,
it gives us some flexibility that we don't have right now.
It does. I just want to add a little bit more to that because you're right on. Here's the issue. Say it's Ben Franklin and they quarantine the whole entire class. That teacher can take that class and that's not an issue. The issue becomes if we do the podding concept and we kind of separate them, if they issue 4 kids here or 3 kids there, it's going to be incredibly difficult for a kindergarten teacher to teach the remaining 15 kids live and do 5 synchronous. This move now gives you the asset and the flexibility to have assets in place where they can now meet their needs. What Rob's going to have a challenge doing, and Justin, work with elementary principals to make sure they're up to speed on working together, looking at pacing, making sure they're playing together, and that's something.
But that's really not our problem.
What's it?
That's their problem.
That's right. This gives us the flexibility. As I
I just want to
told,
make sure we get that. I don't want to hear about
the
it.
one difficult thing, Mr. Harlan, it is overstaffing us slightly. But the only problem with that, sir, is I don't know what's coming down the road.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'd rather be a little bit overstaffed and then through attrition, if we don't need positions.
Yeah.
You know.
We're better off to have a horse in the barn than trying to find one in December.
Yes, sir. And if it goes bad, at least we're in a solid position now that we can address all of these. And then what we struggled with, Jared, how do you do KN1? And we weren't gonna offer KN1 if we didn't have to, because we didn't think it was best for kids. But as the numbers grew, when we should meet their needs, because I think our teachers are 3 times better than that of an outside cyber. And I think for anyone who's on the call or thinking about outside cyber, I think they're failing. Go look at the information, and you'll see the outside cyber schools are failing. Additionally, what we're gonna do, I talked to Mr. President, this board authorized us to go after 12 literacy interns. IEP can only provide 4. So that's $120,000 back a year that we're gonna recoup. Yes, coming out of the same pocket, ESSER funds, but it lessens the amount of money we're gonna use of that ESSER fund. So at the end of this, if the board is okay with the moves we want to make, you'll still have over $900,000 left in ESSER funds. Right now, you've got 1.3. This will still put us in a decent spot to use money and have money set aside if we need it for the future.
Are there any literacy interns available from other higher institutions?
We never ventured outside, and that's my fault. Like when I made the deal with IEP, I thought they would be able to meet that demand, and they haven't. I can look into it. But the one thing, some of the candidates we're going to bring forward tonight have reading specialists and other certifications that where we can't find the literacy interns, hopefully when able, they can fill some intervention as well.
But it'd be worth a phone call or two
Yes,
to
sir.
those other institutions
Yes,
to
sir.
see
Yes, sir.
if there's any opportunity there.
Yep. So, you know, again, where you have the right to critique me and criticize me is it's a little in the way of synchronous, not the live in person. Live in person defends themselves, but the synchronous, a little overstaffing. But the numbers are already grown from 1 week till this week, and the quarantine's here.
Yeah.
We have to have a plan for quarantine. That one, I just can't figure out.
It's unlikely that we're going to get through a year without one building hitting the numbers and having a 10-day quarantine.
Yes, sir.
So having some flexibility academically, you know, we don't send these kids outside for 10 days. We still work with them. So I'm all in favor of overstaffing because I don't think in October we certainly won't regret it.
I don't think it's overstaffing. I'm hearing that it's right staffing.
Yeah.
You know, or somewhat,
Yep.
you know,
It
I
gives
don't
us-
want anybody on the call or the media to think,
Yep.
you know, misinterpret.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
We're not going to have anybody sitting around eating chocolate wondering what they're going to do.
Right.
Yeah, and if things go bad, we're ready now. And this is, and in our defense, it falls in line with your vision for synchronous. It involves in lines with your vision for social distancing to the grid, if that's possible. So there's nothing that, you know, does not meet your values or your vision. So I'm okay with it. It just, you know, where I'm beating myself up, Mr. This, we talked about this for hours and we couldn't. This is the conclusion we came to, and that's why I'm coming forward with that.
I think, Mike, you know, if there's something that good comes out of situations like this pandemic, I think the one good thing is the fact that, as you said, the synchronous is probably here to stay. And we may not have developed that synchronous program or done so at the speed we did had we not gone through the pandemic. But I think that the state of the other cyber schools is almost going to force us to maintain this in some form or another, whatever that is. So I
agree. I think we're better than them too. I think our teachers, our curriculum, we've shown that we can perform. And I think this allows that flexibility where if things get bad, people have options too. And I'd rather be to our programming than outside, because these are our kids. And here's the problem I have with cyber schools. I'll shut up after this. It's easy for these outside cybers to pay radio stations to broadcast their advertisements or to put on our local TV stations. but they're not in our community. They're not our community, and they're not our kids. What we want to do is be compassionate, flexible to those families who are trying to struggle with whether they want in school or out of school, provide them some sort of seamless transition. We'll make mistakes, but I'll guarantee you this, it'll be better than what the outside side is provide. And if not, we'll get better till we are. But we have good staff, we're hiring good people, and I think it's the right thing to do.
So all 5 of these positions are already in the budget. All 5 are with ESSER's funding, or?
I'll have Jared explain that. What we're doing is you authorized us up to 3. So the 3 elementary and the synchronous are in the budget, except for the 1 internal transfer. Jared, do you want to go over it? We are using ESSER's funds, but Jared, do you want to go over that so I don't misspeak and clarify?
Yeah, when we passed the budget, we have basically three open elementary positions. So tonight we are hiring 4 of them. So we are adding an additional elementary position on there now. Those synchronous positions that we had budgeted for were originally planned for ESSER funding, which we will continue that. And we can even pay for the additional teaching position out of the ESSER funding. With the thought, one of our thoughts was, yes, we are right at those guidelines where we may not have to add. Technically, according to the enrollment guidelines, we really don't have to add that extra position. But with COVID and having the ESSER funding, what better year to try and keep class sizes as reasonable as possible. So we feel that it's a good use for that ESSER funding, and we are expecting some retirements over the next year or two, especially as we typically do as a teacher's contract. We're in the last year of that. It just seems to kind of fall in line when a lot of teachers choose to retire at the end of a contract. So we are expecting those next year, which means we can reevaluate where we're at next year. Certainly, we always have some elementary positions when we have a big group go. Because the ESSER funding, it is going to go away. It's, we have it for the next 2 years. That's what we're planning on using the funding for these. But at some point as a district, if we're going to maintain those positions, have to come up with a way of funding them outside of the ESSER funding. And that could mean either cutting them or finding other ways to fund them. But we have options over the next year or two.
I think it's wonderful. With synchronous learning, it's hard for a teacher to keep a hold of all of the children's attention and keep track of the kids in the class as well as and having this would allow you to be able to divert some of the students to. So I think it's wonderful.
Ms. Cinder, you okay?
Yep, I'm absolutely fine.
Okay, I'll jump into policy reviews and updates. Policy 903. What I'm proposing for the first reading for this policy is there's a language at our policy that allows people to provide public comment and board meetings. I am asking us to remove that. It's affectionately referred to as 9.2 on the agenda. I am asking the board to look at that and consider removing that for a couple of reasons. One, they can expedite our meetings, but most importantly, number 2, after you voted on your agenda items, I find no value to 9.2. You have done a great job as a board allowing public comment at committee meetings. You also allow public comment during the start of the meeting for that to provide input. So I don't feel there's anyone being deprived of any opportunity for transparency or to communicate. I think this is just a step in the right direction to move.
You're talking about the board, the public comment at the end of the board.
That's correct, 9.2, yes.
Yeah, the reason that was put in was because everything was being done at a board meeting. There were no committee meetings. And so you hear things going on at the board meeting, and then 2 weeks later, you could comment on it, but it was too late by that point. Okay. With the committees, the way they're being run currently, most of the comments, most of the public participation can happen before the board meeting, before we see the votes. So I know why it was there, and I agree that we could remove it. It's very seldom been used.
And again, you're tonight to take an action on first reading. It has to take 2 readings. So if you have any suggestions or you have reservations, let me know. But for now, it's on there to be removed.
So it stays on until after the second reading, right?
That's right.
This guy's been trying to get me to violate the policy since just about the day he showed up. So I just want to make sure we're not going to violate the policy, right?
That's right. That's correct, sir. It's on. Okay. It's on. The rest of the policy, second reading, electronic signatures. With COVID, it's brought the need for people to be able to sign things electronically. This is a response to that pandemic. It outlines the guidelines for use of accepting electronic signature and and falls in compliance with state and federal laws. I had Jared look over that because in some ways we already do that, right? There's already that occurring. So to me, this is memorializing the policy.
Yeah. mortgages and legal documents
Yes.
now are doing this.
Yep.
The courts recognize it. Welcome to the 21st century.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agree. Policy 816, district social media. This is the second reading. We conducted the first one there. This, we got some feedback from board members on what they want to do, and we updated it to reflect such. Here's where we're at. To me, it's not going to be one where we engage the public. We just communicate with the public. So it's going to be one-way communication. I'm not going to respond to tweets. I'm not going to respond to Facebook posts. None of us have time for that. But we do think we have a responsibility to communicate with families. So what this policy will allow us to do is to do exactly that, where we can use these social media sites and be able to communicate in a one-way direction with them so they know what we're doing as a district. But I'm not going to engage with the public. That's what this forum is for. This is where you call a meet with me. Because last thing I want to do is someone be upset about something that happened to their child, and I'm debating that or explaining their behavior online, or a decision someone likes or doesn't like. That just goes down a bad road. Two, I think those are discoverable, and don't quote me, but I think they're discoverable by right to know law too. And there's been a lot of council members, school board members throughout the country who have their own Facebook pages and websites, and those are all discoverable under right to know. So let's just avoid it. Let's communicate one way, get information out, and then let's not avoid our ability to have real conversations if there's concern. Yes, ma'am.
Do you, on Facebook, do you have to allow people to comment, or can you turn that off?
Yeah, we can change the settings, we can turn it off. The only thing I have, as Madam Vice President, I told Ms. Cinda this today, somehow, some way, there are some comments that get through once in a while, but not all the time. Randy and I set it up that we kind of shut it all down. Would you agree with that, Randy?
Yeah, well, anything we could shut off, shut off.
We shut off. Only because, Madam Vice President, it just gets hard, because I don't want people saying, even if there's no ill intent, I don't want someone to get mad with me saying, Mike, I posted on Facebook, why didn't you respond? I don't look at it all the time. I don't. I cheat. On our website, when I do it's hard, but when I do our website, Madam Vice President, you're gonna laugh, I cheat. There's two buttons. Click here to put on Twitter, and click here to put on Facebook. So I control it through the latest news, and it feeds those other sites. So I really don't even log in to those other sites, and I just don't want to get in the practice of doing so, because it just gets too hard. And I gotta be honest with you, social media has become a terrible place at some levels. It used to be a place where people connect. Now it's a place where people can justify their feelings and rationalize their behavior. I don't want to go down that road. I want to give parents the respect they deserve by having an honest conversation with them, not debating on social media. That's okay with this board. So that's what that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
The other ones, Ms. Cinda, for the sake of conversation, they're all first reading. I would ask the board just to look at them. Any questions, get back to me. We still have to do a second reading. What you'll see with all of these, they were just amended to be reflective of the threat assessment policy that the state came down with, that everyone must have a threat assessment team. We have a threat assessment team. We have been trained. We're ready to go. These policies will just reflect such, so they have the refer tone in place, and that people know that that's an option as well. So, for the sake of conversation, unless you have any questions, I think let you digest it, look at them, get back to me next month, and then we can prove at the second meeting, at the meeting in September, if that's okay. Okay. With that, Ms. Cinda, if you're okay with it, I'd like to turn it over to Strategy Solutions. I know Jackie and Deb, I believe, are both on the call. Don't quote me, Ms. Cinda, but I think what they want to do is walk through with this board on what the draft surveys they look like based upon your leadership. You gave some input. I think they went back to the kitchen and made up some surveys, and I think they want some feedback. In their defense, you'll notice on one of the surveys they say option 1, option 2, and option 3. Those are left blank. The reason why is not because of them, but because of me. I was supposed to give them options that I have yet to work up, and so I think they'll clarify that as they go through. But I think they want to walk through the surveys, and I'll turn it over to them if you're okay with this, and let them guide us through whatever else they need to go through. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jackie, Deb, Jackie, I see you're on a call. I think Deb may be as well, but I'll defer to you both and how you want to proceed from here.
Thanks, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. You are spot on, Mike. We made some revisions to the schedule and methodology in light of the conversation we had last week. So we just want to spend a few minutes going over that and getting agreement that that's the correct approach and the schedule makes sense to everyone. And then the ground rules and criteria were also revised. So we want to sort of just make sure that those make sense. And the criteria was actually scaled down in light of the option finder that Deb had done in person with everyone last week. So what showed up is a recommendation. And then we did just start initial drafts of both a survey that could be sent district-wide, as well as one that would be used to get input from the municipal representatives. And that was a suggested change to move the municipals away from a focus group or individual interviews and look to do this broader community survey. And also we did start the board interviews today, so you don't have to fall on your sword, Mike. We're hoping to inform the options also by the input that we're receiving from the board, and any of the admin we're able to complete between now and Monday. So between what we hear from everyone and what Mike is able to put together, the plan is for next Monday at the board meeting to actually share a handful of the options to put on the table based on that input.
And I would jump in and say, this is Debbie. We've already heard 3 or 4 different options from people that we've talked to so far. So we're probably going to have a handful of what might be considered reasonable options to consider, along with some variations on the options.
And Jackie and Deb, so you know, the board has in front of them both copies of the surveys. That's what I printed for them. But again, I'll defer to you, but I wanted you to know they had hard copies facing them as well.
Okay, good. So, but let's start with the methodology and the schedule first, and let's see if we can get agreement to what we're proposing there.
That didn't get printed.
I left those at home.
So
And Jackie, are you able to put that on the screen, or if we share your screen, or can
I think unless I'm locked out, let's see.
or you can email me and I can print it.
As long as Randy lets me share, I can.
Randy doesn't share very well.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it looks like a prompt might have been sent to give me permission.
So if you just click on the share screen window, you should be able to share.
All right, let me try again. Share.
There you go.
Okay, perfect. So is this large enough, or do I need to blow it up?
Might want to blow it up, please.
So this was revised in light of, I know Jared had sent some dates that I think were informed by the board in a discussion, with the proposed public sessions being session 1 next week, session 2 August 30th, and then session 3 September 20th, with our public input sessions happening in between, or data collection, happening in between that, with the plan to then on September 27th to be able to present recommendations. So this was adjusted to fall in line with the dates we heard from all of you initially.
Can you still email that to Mike so he can print it up for us? Because
I sure can.
It's nice and large, but I got cataracts, so everything's
And Mike, do you need me to resend it so it's top of your email, or do you have it from when it was sent previous?
If you can resend it to the top of my email.
You might not want to show us your invoice.
I have it, I can send.
Oh, you're seeing all my stuff now. Well, now let's see. All right, stop sharing. You type my email.
Jackie, did you hear him?
No, I'm sorry.
And Jackie, if you don't mind, include anything else you think the board should be able to view tonight, because all I printed was the surveys.
Okay, yep, I'm gonna send you everything really quick right now.
something to write on. Is always good.
All right, so you have the surveys, so you don't need those, correct?
That's correct. And the surveys look very well done. I mean,
Oh, and now I can't share anything. That's fun.
Yeah, I agree.
I love all the pictures of masks. Jay.
Well, and as long as whoever said, well, Jackie's fooling around with that, maybe we can talk about the survey, because just because somebody commented that they were very well done, you'll notice that we put word count in the various comment sections of the survey. And they were even less than what we talked about in the last board meeting, mostly because as we looked at those areas, those comments, the answers to those questions don't have to be lengthy.
I agree. But I think you have to limit it to characters, right? Not words.
Well,
They count words though.
Does it?
Yeah.
some of them, it can count words or characters.
Okay.
It's just easier for people to count. I mean, my experience is it's easier for people to count words.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? I mean,
Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
I have a couple of questions because I found the survey hard to follow. Because the questions, number one, the questions 2 and 3 and 4 almost seem to be aimed towards employees.
You check that, then one of those questions come up. the other ones drop
So
out.
the other ones drop out.
Right.
That wasn't clear. Okay, the other thing is on number 5, I see absolutely no reason, nobody can tell me otherwise, why we're bringing up the 2015 controversy. I would just start out by saying there are currently 2 elementary schools, kindergarten through 3, Ben Franklin and East Pike, and the 2 other elementary schools have grade 4 and 5. How would you, please rate this configuration? And then drop down. If you rated the current, I wouldn't even say current configuration, I would just, if you rate this configuration below good, please tell us why. Or I'm going to do the choice. I wouldn't get bogged down too much past 2015 in the modern world is 100 years ago.
I think that's good. Take that first sentence out of there, basically.
So my problem with number 5, Con, is whatever data comes out of that, what is it, what are you able to compare it to? So I don't feel like the question itself is
Relevant.
yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I have the same problem with that question.
Is what relevant?
Yeah, it's asking, if the current configuration is the current configuration.
Right.
2015 has nothing to do with it. Is the current configuration, what do you think of that?
Thank you.
Right, we missed.
Yeah.
We took that out.
But what I'm
I
saying.
sort of agree with what Barb's saying. I would be okay with taking that question off.
Well, yeah, because what are you comparing it to? Some parents might have a K-5 to compare it to. Some parents might have a different school system to compare it to.
Deb,
There isn't much info you can really extrapolate from that.
Deb, what is the purpose of that question? I think is might help us here. Is it just to get a basic feel for whether the parents are satisfied with the current configuration, or is there some other?
Well, yeah, it's to really find out how well they feel the current configuration is working.
Well, that could be the whole question.
Well, that would be the question. Then.
Yeah, just how does the current configuration work?
I don't even think you have to tell them what the schools are.
But we're gonna ask them basically the same thing in one of the other options. So why double ask? Because probably.
Well, we're not going to ask them to rate. We're not going to ask them to rate how well it's working.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
That's not what we're asking. So that's why we're asking that first. We want to get a feeling for we want to get a sense for how people feel about the current configuration.
But we're gonna get that in one of the options. Because probably one of the options is gonna be the
Keep
existing.
things the way they are.
Right.
Right. But if you look at if you look at the answers to the questions related to the options, it's not asking the respondent to rate it as excellent, very good, good, fair, or poor.
I understand that.
Okay, so it's a different question.
It would give a different response. The first question, number 5, if they ask the configuration, they would give them a chance to say, well, this is why it's not working for me. And they don't want to include that for every option that they have of configuration.
I have a question. Will you, in your results, be able to compare, when you extrapolate the data, number 5 to, how many grade levels of number 2? Like, will you be able to statistically pull out and say, well, those had problems number 5 correlates to whether or not they had kids in multiple buildings?
Oh yeah, we could absolutely find that out. And we could yes, we can. So we'll be able to cross-tabulate the answers to find out if there's a difference of opinion based on any of those demographic questions.
Yeah, because parents could have issues with the current configuration, and it has nothing to do with academics, just having children in multiple buildings.
Right.
And that could be it. And if they rate it poor, and and we ask them why, and they say, I've got children in multiple buildings and it's a hassle, then we'll know that.
Can't you ask them a leading question?
Well, we don't want to ask them a gimme question that we lead them to an answer. We don't want to do that. So the rating of the current configuration will give us that.
Can I make a
And then
comment? Go ahead. Can I suggest that we put the grade levels next to elementary, junior high, high school? Because especially with 5th grade in the junior high, we want to make sure, are we going to do K through 5 for elementary in these surveys? Because that's the existing configuration if it wasn't for the 5. So I'm assuming we would.
I would assume.
What were you
So
saying?
we would label, so what you're suggesting is labeling elementary K through 5, junior high 6 through 8, and high school 9 through 12.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what you do. It'd be nice to, even if you'll still give us data, I'd like to know what each grade level, right? Elementary, the big system, but you can be able to disaggregate that data down to grade level, be interested to see what the views and perspectives are. So I support that.
So are you wanting it just K to 5, or do you want K to 3 and then 4, 5?
Well, I think depending on how they do it, what I would probably do, I mean, they're the expert, not me. What I'd probably do is make it you can make it elementary, secondary. Then in there, he's saying you can identify your grade level either by another question, or you can group K to 3, 4 to 5, however they want to do it. Short.
I would make the options elementary K through 3, and then elementary 4 and 5, and then junior high 6 through 8, and then high school 9 to 12. If you want to refine out those 2 elementary configurations.
Good data for us to know.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're getting all head nods here.
Okay, good. I can't see it because I'm only on the phone. So thank you for that. So Jackie, do you have the ability for us to go back and talk about methodology? Because I can't see what's showing on the screen.
I put the survey up since we were talking about the survey, but I do.
Okay.
I also think we all have hard copies now too, so.
And then the methodology was amended to do the broad community survey and elected official survey. And then we'll get input from the teachers and staff. And then to work with union leadership to identify participants who are teachers and staff that would participate in a focus group. And then look to do interviews with the chamber director, the borough mayor, and potentially a handful of other folks.
The borough should be the borough manager and whoever he wants to bring into it. So he'll probably bring the borough president and part of the borough mayor in a conversation. But it'd be one conversation with the borough. He might bring the chairman of the economic development. So I would contact the borough manager and have him set who he wants in that meeting with you.
Okay.
And the same for the township?
Yeah, I'd contact Mill Lady, have him set who he wants in there,
Yeah.
or who wants to be there. I wouldn't artificially limit it to Milt, okay? Because then he'd feel, you know, if he doesn't have George Lenz in there, he may not say anything.
Right.
So contact Milt Lady at the township. Contact Michael Flood. You okay? Yeah, we might have fallen off the bridge.
This is not saying.
Maybe, we don't know. Hello?
I'm still here. Did you lose me? Did I lose you?
Well, somebody fell.
Something happened.
Oh, I disconnected myself from my plug, maybe because someone's outside mowing. So maybe you heard a cord or something on my end.
Yeah.
Okay, so did you follow that conversation, those suggestions that Tom had?
I heard to talk to the borough manager and the township manager and let them decide who they felt should be involved in that conversation.
Yeah, that's correct.
What about the county? Okay. Are we talking about the county?
Yeah, but who would you contact at the county?
The planning office, maybe instead of the commissioners, but I don't think we ought to. I don't think we ought to.
Okay, no outreach to the county.
Yeah.
You'll get the county through the chamber.
Okay.
Mark Hillard would bring the ICDC, I'm sure. So that'll be fine.
And then Armstrong Township.
Armstrong Township too, and Shalopta Borough.
Yes, you got it.
You've got to
He's
do
got to
all
reach
the
out.
municipal entities in the school district.
You will bring that up. I don't know those people.
Doesn't matter. They're
No.
in our district. We need to do it.
Jackie, I'm not sure who the paid professional staff at the Armstrong Township is. But I would reach out to the township manager for Armstrong Township. And then with Shalopta, what I would do would be to ask him to invite the Shalopta people.
Jackie? Pat George is the Armstrong Township Secretary. 724-465-4755.
Okay.
Okay, and I don't think they have a manager. I think they just have the 5 supervisors. But Pat runs the place.
Okay. Last time we had talked about moving to do a survey to reach a handful of these municipal officials as opposed to individual interviews. So I just want to make sure that we're clear on the methodology for how we want to reach these folks.
I'm okay with a survey. I think
Yeah.
that is what we discussed.
But I think we need to at least make contact with them and seek their input. The other thing maybe in your survey that you send out is maybe the final question is if you'd like an interview, let them indicate that and go from there.
I would think with the township that somebody might want to talk, and the conversation would be good to diffuse any.
No, I agree.
No. I'm piling on to your comment.
Okay. I'm thinking more of Armstrong and Shalopta. You can send them the survey. That may be sufficient for them. If they want an interview, let them respond.
Okay, we can add a question at the end of the survey that says, would you like to talk to us to provide more information and feedback?
That's correct.
Check yes and put a phone number, and then we'll call them.
one borough.
No, that's exactly right. If they really feel strong about it one way or the other, that gives them the opportunity to weigh in like everybody else. But at the same time, if they could care less, then it's, no harm, no foul.
And Jackie, I don't know if this is fair to ask, maybe when you compile the surveys, you're ready to send them, as I'll be emailed them or put on a website, can you send us a letter? Maybe let people know about the meetings and or the opportunity to complete the surveys. That way people can't say they weren't informed or made aware. So maybe when you look at your correspondence, your communications, give us something along that nature. We can talk offline a little bit more about that.
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Oh, yeah, we can absolutely do that.
How are we going to advertise for these meetings?
That's a good point. Right now, they're advertised on our, it's part of the Buildings and Grounds Committee agenda, right? So if you're on the agenda through the advertisement of that agenda of the committee, if you're okay with that. I could send out a letter to, what I just spoke to Jackie about, making people aware of it, but I think since we're dealing with it at the committee meeting, I think it's appropriate to be on the agenda, but I can always change it if the board so chooses. But to me, I would leave it on the agenda, and maybe as we send an email blast out about the survey, invite people if they want to participate online or come in person next week. Would that be acceptable by the committee?
Well, to further parts, I had that same question. August 16th, we have a Building and Grounds Transportation Committee meeting. What meeting is on August 30th?
Finance.
It's supposed to be outreach. That's the fifth Monday of the
So
month.
finance is 23rd, okay.
So I guess that's what, and then September 6th or 13th, they're proposing a board work session. 20th, another session. So we're either gonna have to, I think we ought to schedule a special meeting or a special committee meeting or whatever we want to call it.
Outreach is on the 30th then, right?
On my calendar it is.
So, okay, so that'll be the August 30th meeting. What about the 6th or 13th?
If work sessions, they don't need, I mean, again, pop off on it, but it's a work session that can be done with the board.
But is there another meeting that,
On August 30th, there's an academic committee meeting on my schedule.
what about September 6th or 13th?
Labor Day
September
is
6th and 13th are both Mondays. There's nothing on the 6th, that's a Labor Day.
Yes, 6th is Labor
That
Day,
one.
Yeah,
and 13th is a regular board.
So
So do we want to do that at a regular board meeting?
well,
Or we're gonna have it before?
yeah, I would think this, you have a couple different options. You can make it part of the policy and personnel committee meeting, but maybe allow me to work offline with Jackie and see what the scope is. If it's a workshop, maybe we could do that prior to policy personnel or in place of, depending where we're at. It depends on what we're gonna go over that day. Jackie, what's your intention? Well, maybe if it's okay with you, I could talk offline.
Yeah.
Let's get through
Figure
next
out
week.
those meetings.
Yep, and I can iron the rest out. That's
my
okay.
only concern with August 30th is it is the first day of school. And so if you want to actually get public participation, it's going to be very difficult because parents will be busy with the first day of school.
Why would they be busy?
I'm gonna make a suggestion because August, the way we originally recommended these meetings, the first one we were recommending on August 16th would be a public meeting to put options on the table and allow the board to narrow the options down to a handful. We actually wanted 3 or 4 weeks between the first meeting and the second meeting because we need to actually do the survey and gather our public input. So having this second meeting on August 30th, which is going to be the first day of school, is going to be way too soon to have that meeting.
Okay, it sounds like you and Mike need to work out the schedule.
Okay, but I'm going to lean back on this, that we have to make decisions in order to get something started, in order to get our kids back in where they need to be. So one of the things I don't want to do is spend 4 weeks doing this and another 4 weeks doing that, and sometime in 2022, we finally make a decision on what we're going to do.
Well, we also have to give Mike and administration the time to actually put some cost numbers and impact numbers around. That second meeting should either be on September 13th or 20th. It shouldn't be on August 30th because that won't give us enough time to do the survey.
But I would suggest, since there really is no meeting scheduled for the week of September the 6th, that we do something on Tuesday night, September the 7th, as a compromise, and allow it to shift 1 week to give you the extra time, but not allow it to go so far out of hand that we wind up getting this thing delayed forever.
I'm okay with letting Mike work out the details of these next meetings.
Okay.
I just want to put my oar in that we have to put a nose to the grindstone and get this done in the expeditious.
But I'm fine with that. We don't have to figure it out.
Okay, to go back to Barb's point though, or her question was, how do we get this information out? I'm assuming it's gonna be on the website. I'm assuming that we should probably put out a press release to both the radio station and the newspaper, kind of announcing kind of what the schedule is, okay? And then get them to put something on their various venues. And then I'm pretty sure we talked about this in the agenda setting meeting. There's going to be something probably on the upcoming meetings at the very end of our board meeting agenda. That should probably be included. Those special meetings or those special activities at the regular committee meeting should be identified, Mike, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I think we should have the ability to communicate. I think what we need to do is just refine the dates, and after we know the dates we're good with, we can handle it from there. We can get it out there, and we'll give, I think you're gonna see a combination of print media as well as social media. We can handle it from there.
Okay.
We trust you.
I'm on it.
Anything else on the dates, the calendar? From Jackie or Debbie or the board?
No, I mean, as long as you're okay with it, we'll work with Mike to get this refined and to sync up with when meetings are happening and to ensure that there's enough time to have activities completed.
And Jackie and Deb, if you're okay with it, let's start small. Let's plan to make sure we're ready for August 16th Monday. And then maybe on Thursday, I have time with you to go over schedule. I'm booked tomorrow and I'm booked Wednesday, but maybe Thursday, then let's make sure we're ready for Monday the 16th, and then we can plan the rest of the dates out. That's okay with everyone.
Yep, and we have a meeting scheduled for Friday to do planning.
Yes.
Although I will say the planning was for the details. Can you actually get the notice out for the public meeting on Monday the 16th without the rest of the details about the other public meetings?
We can. The board has already communicated to the public our agendas. What I would do is just ask that letter I asked you to draft about, informing people, give it to me. As soon as you get it to me, I can get it out quickly and efficiently.
On at least the 16th.
Yeah, we're having that 16th meeting no matter what.
You know, whether you're ready or not.
Yeah, there's other agenda items.
Well, we'll be ready for the meeting on the 16th. The question is going to be the following one to give us time to do the survey.
Yeah, and Jackie, Deb, not to beat this horse any longer, but I'd like to talk on Thursday because I have a business education summit meeting with the Chamber of Commerce from 9 to 12 on Friday. I could sneak out probably at 10, but I'd like to maybe be on Thursday as well, so we can talk offline about that. But Thursday is shaping up to be a little bit better for me.
Okay, I'll send you an email with some potential times to connect.
Okay.
Anything else?
So what about, you gonna go over the proposed ground rules then? You got about 6 minutes. Trying to
Yeah,
do
and there were not many changes made to this in light of the last conversation. Let me stick out up here too.
I think we should start taking bets who break the rules first. ground rule means that when you state an opinion, you ask for comments and questions immediately. I'm just real short.
Are we gonna do this like a basketball, bracket, you know? Is there anything else, Jackie or Debbie?
No, as long as everybody is good with the ground rules, we're good there. And then the only other thing would be the criteria. So in light of the conversation and the exercise last week, I know there was a long list of criteria that all of you had a chance to weigh in on how important that criteria was to you. And then the suggestion is to consider using these 5 that are up on the screen and on the last sheet of your handouts, assuming that they've all been copied for you now, knowing that you would then rate each option against these criteria on this scale.
Any questions from the board?
Nope.
Okay, Mike, unless you have anything else, turn it back to Cinda.
Move to close.
I'm good. Anybody else have anything?
Second.
9.2?
Thanks, Debbie and Jackie.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Mike. I'll be in touch.
All right, thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.